HR didn't ask me to sit. They told me to put my badge on the table. 2 security guards waited outside the door. Then legal slid me a restraining order with my name, my office address, and my ex's signature. In one morning, I went from trusted to dangerous without doing anything. My name is Marcus Hale. I'm 38 years old, and until last spring I worked as an IT security analyst for a mid-sized healthcare company in Denver. It wasn't glamorous work, but it was steady, it mattered, and it was the first job I'd ever had where I felt like I could breathe, like my life had finally settled into something predictable. I'm the kind of guy who likes predictable. I show up early, I keep receipts, I don't raise my voice, I don't post drama online, I don't drink too much, I don't gamble, and I've never been in a physical fight in my adult life. My coworkers used to joke that I was corporate Switzerland because I never took sides and never got involved. If people argued in meetings, I was the one quietly taking notes and making sure the action items got done. That's why what happened to me still feels surreal. Not because relationships don't go bad, those stories are everywhere, but because of how fast one lie can turn your workplace into a courtroom and your reputation into a crime scene. 3 months before everything blew up, I ended a 2-year relationship with my ex, Elise. Elise was charming in a way that made you feel chosen. She knew how to make a room lean toward her, how to laugh at the right moment, how to turn a boring dinner into a story you'd tell your friends the next day. In the beginning, that felt like warmth. Later, I realized it was control. She had a habit of testing boundaries in small ways first. She'd ask for my phone just to see something, then scroll longer than she needed. She'd show up unannounced and act hurt if I looked surprised. She'd take a private conversation and repeat it to someone else, but with a different tone, like she was checking who would believe her version. I ignored things I shouldn't have ignored because nothing was technically wrong. No screaming matches, no bruises, no broken plates. Just pressure, constant pressure. The breakup itself wasn't explosive. It was quiet, which in hindsight might have been what made her angrier. I told her I didn't see a future. I told her I felt like I was always being managed, always being measured, like I was dating a performance review. She stared at me for a long time, nodded slowly, and said, "Okay, if that's what you want." Then she smiled, small and polite, and said something that made my stomach drop. "You know," she said, "people really only know the version of you I let them see." At the time, I tried to write it off as bitterness. I even told myself she didn't mean it. But over the next few weeks, she made sure I understood she meant every word. It started with little disruptions, a sudden flood of texts late at night, then silence all day. A friend asking me awkwardly if everything was okay between me and Elise because Elise seemed really scared about something. A mutual acquaintance unfollowing me after years of normal conversations. My sister mentioning that Elise had messaged her just checking in and that the message felt off, like it had a purpose. I didn't engage. I didn't clap back. I blocked Elise on the obvious channels, phone, social media, and I kept my life tight and boring. Work, gym, groceries, sleep. I thought that was how you starve drama. What I didn't understand was that some people don't want attention, they want consequence. At my job, we had strict policies about harassment, workplace safety, and anything involving legal orders. Healthcare companies are extra sensitive because they handle protected information and have to demonstrate a safe environment. The HR department wasn't cruel, they were cautious, sometimes overly cautious, but the culture was very clear. If a situation even hinted at danger, they would act fast, which is why Elise chose the weapon she chose. On a Tuesday morning in April, my calendar was packed with security audits. I had coffee, a couple granola bars in my bag, and a list of tasks that would keep me in meetings until mid-afternoon. I remember the day in weird detail because I've replayed it 100 times. At 9:17 a.m., I got an email from HR with the subject line, "Immediate meeting. Please come to HR." No context, no friendly tone, no "when you have a moment," just immediate. I assumed it was about a routine compliance thing, maybe a new training requirement. I'd been assigned to help with a system access review the week before, and sometimes HR needed confirmation that managers had completed the right paperwork. I walked down the hallway toward HR and noticed something I hadn't noticed before. 2 security guards standing near the entrance to the administrative wing. Not our usual front desk guard, but the kind of guards they brought in for serious incidents. Tall, quiet, hands folded in front, eyes scanning. That's when a little alarm went off in my head. I slowed down and checked my phone, half expecting a message from my manager. Nothing, no missed calls, no texts. I kept walking anyway, because when you work in corporate America, you're trained to believe that if you just cooperate, everything will be fine. In the HR office, 3 people were waiting. Dana from HR, a man from legal I'd seen once in onboarding, and my department director, Adrian, who looked like he hadn't slept. Dana didn't ask me to sit. She asked me to put my badge on the table. "Marcus," she said, and her voice sounded careful, like she was stepping around glass. "We received documentation this morning that requires us to take immediate action." I blinked. "What documentation?" The legal guy slid a paper across the table. It looked official at a glance. There was a court heading at the top, a case number, and a seal printed in gray. There were terms in bold: respondent, petitioner, no contact, stay away distance, workplace address listed under protected locations. My workplace address, my name, and Elisa's name. Dana watched my face like she was studying whether I was about to explode. I didn't. I stared at it and felt my brain go blank, like someone had pulled the plug. "A restraining order," I heard myself say, and my voice sounded weirdly calm. This is not real." Adrian finally spoke, and he sounded miserable. "Marcus, we don't know what's real. We only know what we were sent." "Who sent it?" I asked. Dana hesitated for a fraction of a second. "It was emailed to our general HR inbox from an address that appeared to belong to your former partner. She said she was notifying us for workplace safety." My throat went tight. "She emailed you this?" "She said she was afraid," Dana replied, and the way she said it, soft, practiced, made me understand something. Elise didn't just send a document. She sent a story with it. A story designed to make them see me as an immediate threat. I picked up the paper. The formatting was off in subtle ways, things I noticed because my job trained me to notice patterns. The font size shifted in places. The seal looked slightly pixelated. The signature line had a name that didn't match the neatness of the rest. The date felt wrong, like it didn't align with the usual filing timelines. But I also knew something else. None of that mattered in that room. I could have been right, and they still would have acted like I could be dangerous because the risk of being wrong in the other direction was too high. "I haven't been served," I said. "No police have contacted me. No process server. Nothing. If there was an order, I would know." The legal guy nodded slightly as if he'd heard that before. "That may be," he said. "But we have an obligation to respond as if it is valid until we verify otherwise." "Verify with who?" I asked. "The court, the clerk, because I can do that right now." Dana's eyes flicked to Adrian, then back to me. "For today," she said, "we need you to leave the premises." The sentence hit harder than I expected. Not because it was loud, but because it was final. "Leave," I repeated. "You're sending me home." Adrian's voice cracked a little. "Marcus, it's not a punishment, it's procedure." Procedure. That word is a shield. It's what people hide behind when they don't want to admit they're making a decision about you with incomplete information. I looked at my director, at the man who'd praised my work 2 weeks earlier, who'd told me my security recommendations had probably prevented a serious breach, and realized he was terrified of liability. Not me. Liability. Dana slid another paper toward me. This one wasn't a court document. It was an internal notice. Administrative leave pending investigation. "We'll pay you," she said quickly, like she wanted credit for mercy. "This is paid leave while we sort things out." I took a slow breath. "And my team? What do I tell them?" "You don't contact anyone from work," the legal guy said. "Not until we resolve this." I stared at him. "So I'm being treated like someone who did this?" "We're treating this like a safety matter," Dana corrected. I could feel anger trying to rise, hot and sharp, but I forced it down. In that moment, I understood another ugly truth. If I reacted emotionally, it would confirm the story they'd been handed. I needed to be the calmest person in the room, even though my life had just been flipped. "Okay," I said carefully, "I'll leave, but I want it on record that I'm stating this document is fake, and I'm requesting immediate verification through official channels." Dana nodded. "We'll note your statement." Adrian wouldn't look at me. One of the guards walked me back to my desk like I was being escorted out of a casino. My coworkers looked up as I passed. Some tried to hide it, some didn't. I saw confusion, curiosity, and on one face, something like fear. That part hurt the most, because fear spreads faster than facts. At my desk, I collected my phone charger, a notebook, and a framed photo of my dad from years ago. I didn't take much else because I kept thinking, this is temporary. They'll verify it. It'll be cleared up by tomorrow. But as I walked toward the exit, a new thought settled in, heavy and cold. Even if tomorrow comes and they clear it up, people will still remember today. They'll remember the guard, the badge on the table, the way HR didn't let me sit, the phrase restraining order spoken in a hush, like it was contagious. And Elise, somewhere, probably smiling, understood that the accusation was the punishment. The truth would always arrive late, tired and out of breath. Outside the building, the spring air felt too bright, too normal. Cars moved through intersections like nothing had happened. People carried coffee cups and talked on phones, living in a world where my name wasn't suddenly attached to a legal threat. I got into my car and just sat there with both hands on the steering wheel, staring straight ahead. I didn't call Elise. I didn't text her. I didn't post anything. I didn't even call my mom. Instead, I did what I've always done when something doesn't make sense. I decided to verify. Because if that paper was real, I needed a lawyer immediately. And if it was fake, then Elise had crossed into a kind of revenge that could burn down my entire life unless I handled it the right way. I started the engine, pulled out of the parking lot, and drove home with one question looping in my mind like a siren. How do you prove you're innocent when the world already saw you being escorted out? I got home, tossed my keys in the bowl by the door, and stood in my living room like I didn't recognize it. My laptop bag was still on the chair where I'd left it that morning. A half-finished mug of coffee sat on the counter from the day before. Everything in my apartment screamed normal routine, and yet I was suddenly the kind of man HR walks out with security. I sat at my kitchen table, spread the two papers out in front of me, and forced myself to look at them like a work problem. Not a personal betrayal, not humiliation. A work problem. The order Elise sent had a case number at the top and a court name I recognized. District Court, same county. It looked plausible enough that a busy HR employee would panic, especially if the email included phrases like, "I fear for my safety, and I'm legally required to inform you." I stared at the case number for a long time. Case numbers aren't magic. They follow patterns. They belong to a system, and systems leave trails. I opened my laptop and went straight to the county court's online portal. Most people don't even know those portals exist until they're forced to. I knew because I'd helped a friend look up a small claims hearing years ago. You don't get full documents without permission, but you can usually see dockets, case listings, parties' names, hearing dates. I typed the case number into the search bar, hit enter, and waited. A spinning circle, a short pause. Then a result appeared. It wasn't my name. It wasn't Elise's name. It was two completely different people, names I'd never seen before on a case type that made no sense for a restraining order. It looked like a civil dispute, something involving a property disagreement. No protection order label, no domestic tag, nothing. My first reaction should have been relief. Instead, I felt cold, because there were two possibilities, and neither of them was comforting. Either HR had been sent a fake document with a real case number attached to someone else's case, or I was looking at the wrong portal. The wrong jurisdiction, the wrong type of filing. Some restraining orders are sealed, some are in separate systems, some don't show up publicly. Elise was smart enough to hide behind that uncertainty. I went back to the PDF image on my screen and zoomed in on the court seal. It wasn't a raised embossed seal, obviously, just a printed graphic. Up close, it looked like it had been copied from somewhere and pasted. The edges were fuzzy, like it had been scaled up too far. I opened a separate tab and searched for legitimate court documents from the same district. I found a sample order on the court's website. Same seal shape, but the lettering on the official seal was crisp. The document had a footer with a clerk's stamp line and an electronic filing notation. The fake one didn't, but again, none of that was proof. It was me at my kitchen table playing forensic analyst with a grudge and a sinking feeling in my stomach. I needed something certified, something boring and undeniable. Something that didn't rely on my interpretation. I grabbed my phone and called the courthouse clerk's office. After the usual automated prompts, a woman answered with the exhausted tone of someone who's been repeating the same sentences all day. "Clerk's office, how can I help you?" I kept my voice calm. "Hi, my name is Marcus Hale. I'm trying to verify a case number associated with a protection order. I don't have the full document from the court, but I have a case number and a court name. Can you confirm whether that case number is a protection order case?" There was a pause. "We can't give legal advice." "I'm not asking for advice," I said, careful. "I'm asking whether the case number corresponds to a protection order filing in your system." Another pause, longer this time. Keyboard clicks. Then, "That case number is not a protection order case." My heart thumped once, hard. "Okay," I said, steady. "Can you tell me what it is?" We can only provide basic public information, she replied, but her tone softened slightly, like she understood what I was really asking. It's a civil matter between two different parties. Not your name. Not. She stopped herself. Not the parties you said. I exhaled through my nose, trying not to sound like a man on the edge of falling apart. Is there any way for me to get something in writing that confirms that? You can request a certified docket printout, she said. In person or by mail. There's a fee. In person, I said immediately. Today. She gave me the office hours and told me which window handles records requests. When the call ended, I sat there for a second, staring at my phone. I had just heard the first clean crack in Elise's story. But I also knew what I was up against. A crack isn't collapse. HR didn't remove me because they ran a docket search. They removed me because they received a scary-looking document and didn't want to gamble with safety. If I came back to them with a clerk said so, they'd shrug. They'd say they needed official verification. So I grabbed my jacket and drove downtown. The courthouse was exactly what you'd expect. Beige stone, metal detectors, lines that moved at the speed of regret. I left my keys in a tray, walked through the scanner, and followed signs to the records office. Behind the glass, a clerk with reading glasses and a tight bun looked at me like I'd already made her day harder. Records request, she said flatly. I need a certified docket printout for a case number. I replied, sliding the number on a sticky note under the glass. She glanced at it, then at me. Name? Marcus Hale. She typed, clicked, frowned slightly, and typed again. This case isn't under your name. I know, I said. That's why I need the certified docket. Someone used this number on a document with my name on it. Now she looked up. That was the first moment someone in an official building actually reacted like they understood the severity. Not emotionally, but procedurally, like a gear shifted. She didn't accuse me of lying. She didn't roll her eyes. She just said, "One moment," and stood up. She disappeared into a back office and returned with a supervisor, a man in a brown cardigan who had the weary authority of someone who'd seen every flavor of human stupidity and pain. He leaned toward the microphone. You're saying a protection order document was created using this case number? Yes, I said. It was sent to my employer. I was removed from my job this morning. His face tightened. Do you have the document with you? I slid my phone forward, opened the PDF image I'd saved from the HR meeting, and angled it so he could see the header and the case number. He stared at the screen for a long moment, then nodded once, slowly. That is not our format, he said. A simple sentence. Quiet, almost bored, but it hit me like a weight dropping off my chest, because it wasn't my opinion anymore. It wasn't "it looks off." It was a court employee saying those words. Can I get that in writing? I asked. He pointed at the clerk. We can provide a certified docket showing the parties, the filing type, and the history. That will confirm the case number belongs to a different matter. It won't say this is forged, but it will show the mismatch. That's enough, I said. That's exactly what I need. The clerk printed pages, stamped them with a seal, and attached a certification page. She slid the packet under the glass. I paid the fee. My hands were steady, but I could feel adrenaline under my skin, like electricity. As I tucked the certified docket into a folder, the supervisor added, If your employer received a document claiming to be from this court, and it isn't, they should contact law enforcement. I nodded. I will. I walked out of the courthouse with a piece of paper that felt heavier than it should have. Not because it weighed a lot, but because of what it represented, reality, verified. Still, I wasn't naive. A certified docket could prove the case number mismatch. It could show that Elise's document didn't match the court's case record. But Elise could still claim it was a different case, a sealed case, a different court, a new filing. She could muddy the water. And HR again wasn't looking for justice. They were looking for certainty. On the drive back, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Stop trying to ruin my life. You know what you did. No name, no signature. But I knew. I didn't respond. I took a screenshot and saved it to a folder labeled Elise. A minute later, another message arrived. If you come near me again, I'll call the police. I hadn't been near her in months. I saved that one too. By the time I pulled into my apartment parking lot, I had a new understanding. This wasn't a single fake document. This was an ongoing campaign to make me look unstable, dangerous, and guilty by association, and she was doing it in a way that dared me to react. I went inside, set the certified docket on my table, and called my manager, Adrian, even though they'd told me not to contact anyone. It rang twice. He answered quietly, Marcus, he said, and his voice carried that same strained tiredness. You're not supposed to call. I know, I replied. I'm not asking you to do anything off the record. I'm telling you I have certified court documentation that the case number on the order you received belongs to a different case with different parties. The document is not legitimate. Silence on the line. Then, softer. Do you have it in writing? Yes. Certified docket. Court seal. Certification page. I'm going to have to involve legal, he said. Please do, I replied. And Adrian, I need you to understand something. This isn't a misunderstanding. Someone forged a court document and used it to get me removed from my job. His breath caught. Okay, email it to HR. Right now. I will, I said, and then I hesitated. Adrian, can I ask you something? Yeah, who else knows? Another long pause. HR, legal, your director team, and security, and my team. He didn't answer immediately, which was an answer. They saw me escorted out, I said, my voice tighter now. They're going to assume the worst. I'm sorry, he said, and this time it sounded real. We didn't know what else to do. I know, I replied, even though part of me didn't want to give him that comfort. Just fix it. We ended the call. I scanned the certified docket with my phone and emailed it to Dana in HR and the legal contact listed on the administrative leave notice. My email was short, clean, and careful. Attached is a certified court docket printout for the case number listed on the document you received today. The docket shows the case belongs to different parties and is not a protection order matter. This indicates the document provided to you is not authentic. Please confirm receipt and advise next steps. Then I waited. For 15 minutes, nothing. Then my phone buzzed again, this time a message from a coworker, Jonah, someone I trusted. Dude, are you okay? People are saying you got served at work. My stomach dropped. So the story was already mutating. It wasn't Marcus is on leave. It was Marcus got served. It was Marcus is dangerous. It was Marcus did something. I typed back slowly. I'm okay. It's not what it looks like. I'll explain when I can. As soon as I sent it, I regretted it. Even that sounded suspicious, like a man trying to control a narrative. That's the thing about accusations like this. They don't just attack your reputation. They poison your ability to communicate at all. Every sentence becomes evidence. I put my phone down, stared at the certified docket, and felt my anger finally sharpen into something focused. Elise wanted me isolated, quiet, removed, unemployed. She wanted me to lose my footing so I'd beg, threaten, or snap, so she could say, "See, I told you." I wouldn't give her that. But I also knew one certified docket wouldn't end it. Not fully. Because if Elise was willing to forge an order, she might be willing to do something else next. Something that didn't just cost me my job, but my freedom. And that thought, the idea that the next lie could come with police at my door, sat in my chest like a stone as I watched my inbox, waiting for HR to respond. My inbox stayed empty for almost an hour. That shouldn't have mattered, but it did, because every minute I waited was a minute the rumor had time to grow legs at work. And rumors don't just travel, they evolve, they pick up details, they gain witnesses, they become a story people can repeat without feeling guilty. When HR finally replied, it was from Dana. Marcus, thank you for sending this. Legal is reviewing. Please do not contact employees at this time. We will schedule a call tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning. Like my life hadn't already been detonated. I reread her email 3 times, hoping there was a sentence I missed. Something like, "We're sorry," or "We can confirm the document is fraudulent," or even just, "You will be reinstated immediately." There was none of that. Just review, schedule, tomorrow. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling, trying to decide what my next move was. My instinct was to keep building proof, keep everything clean and documented. But then another message popped up, this time on LinkedIn. A connection request from a stranger with no profile picture. The message read, "He's not who you think. Ask Elise." My stomach twisted so hard it felt like I'd swallowed ice water. This wasn't staying inside HR. Elise had pushed it outward into the one place where professional reputation lives and dies quietly. I screenshotted it. Then I opened my email again and did something I almost didn't do because it felt paranoid. I checked my sent mail and created a folder labeled Legal Evidence. I dropped everything into it. The HR emails, the docket scan, the screenshots, the unknown texts. I even wrote a short note to myself with timestamps because I knew how memory gets slippery when you're under stress. That was the first time I admitted the situation might become more than HR confusion. Because if Elise had forged a court document once, what was she going to do next when she realized it didn't stick? That night I barely slept. I kept waking up to the same thought. What if the police show up at my door because she calls in a new allegation? At 6:30 a.m., I stopped trying to sleep and started making calls. I called 2 attorneys I found through the state bar referral list, one who specialized in employment law, another who handled civil litigation and protective orders. The first one had a receptionist who promised a callback in 2 business days. The second one offered a paid consultation that afternoon. I booked it immediately. Then on a separate track, I called the non-emergency police line. I was careful with my words. I believe someone has forged a court document and provided it to my employer. I have a certified docket showing the case number belongs to different parties. I'd like to file a report. The dispatcher told me I could come into the precinct and speak with an officer. No promises about what would happen. No immediate sense of urgency. Still, a report is a report. It's a timestamp in the system. I drove to the precinct with my folder, sat in a plastic chair, and waited under a flickering TV playing morning news. When an officer finally called me into a small interview room, he listened without interrupting, but his expression stayed neutral in a way that made it hard to read. He took the certified docket, glanced at the seal, and nodded like he understood what it meant. Then he asked the question I'd been dreading. "Do you have the original document?" "My employer has whatever was emailed," I said. "They showed me a printout." "So you don't have the email headers. You don't have the source file. You don't know who physically created it." "I know who benefited," I replied before I could stop myself. The officer lifted a hand slightly, not harsh, just procedural. "I understand, but for forgery cases we need evidence of who authored the document or transmitted it knowingly." "She emailed it," I said, "from her address." "Did you see the email?" "No. HR told me." He nodded again. "Okay, here's what we can do today. We can take an informational report. That creates a record. If your employer cooperates and provides the email and attachments, we can forward it to detectives for review." I exhaled. Not satisfying, but it was something. He typed up the report, asked for Elise's name, and asked for the timeline. When he slid the final page across the table for me to confirm, I felt a strange mix of relief and anger. Relief, because now this wasn't just Marcus says his ex is crazy. It was documented. Anger, because the system moved at the speed of paperwork while reputations burned in real time. Before I left, the officer added, "If she contacts you directly, don't respond. Save everything. If she threatens you, call 911. I almost laughed, but I didn't. I thanked him and walked out. By the time I got back to my car, my phone had 2 missed calls from an unknown number, and a voicemail from my mother. "Marcus," her voice said, shaky. "Call me, please. Elise, she called me last night. She said she's scared of you. She said there's paperwork. She said you've been unstable." I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. Elise had called my mother. Not to ask for help, not to apologize, to poison the one person who would normally take my side without question. I called my mom back immediately. When she answered, she sounded like she'd been crying. "Mom," I said, keeping my voice as calm as I could. "Listen to me. There is no real restraining order. The document she sent is not authentic. I went to the courthouse. I got a certified docket proving the case number belongs to completely different people." She hesitated. "But why would she?" "Because she wants to hurt me," I said, and hearing the words out loud made my throat tighten. "And she's using fear to do it." My mom was quiet for a second. Then she whispered. She sounded so convincing. "I know," I replied. "That's why I'm handling this with documentation. Please don't talk to her again. If she calls, tell her to contact my attorney, once I have one." That last part was a promise I still needed to make true. After the call, I sat in my car for a minute and just breathed. I could feel myself drifting toward panic, and I forced it back down. Elise wanted panic. Panic makes people sloppy. Sloppy makes mistakes, and I couldn't afford a single mistake. At noon, Dana emailed again. "Marcus, legal reviewed your docket document. They are still attempting to validate whether any protection order exists under a sealed case. Because of safety obligations, we will continue administrative leave until verification is complete. We have also instructed security to maintain the current workplace restrictions." Sealed case. There it was, the escape hatch Elise had built into the lie. I stared at the email until the words blurred. A sealed case meant I couldn't disprove it through public portals. It meant HR could justify keeping me out just in case. It meant my name could stay in limbo indefinitely. And that's when I realized something that made my stomach turn even worse. Elise didn't have to win in court. She only had to win in uncertainty. I replied with one sentence. Please confirm what official verification steps you are taking and the expected timeline. They didn't answer. So I went to the attorney consultation. The lawyer's name was Priya Desai. Her office was in a small building with peeling paint, the kind of place you'd never notice unless you were looking for it. Inside, it smelled like coffee and old files. She shook my hand, sat across from me and said, "Tell me what happened. Start from the beginning, and don't minimize." That last part made me pause, because minimizing is my default coping mechanism. I'm the guy who says, "It's fine," while the room is on fire. So I told her everything. The breakup, the HR meeting, the document, the certified docket, the texts, the LinkedIn message, the call to my mom. She didn't interrupt. She just took notes, occasionally asking for a date or a time. When I finished, she tapped her pen against the notepad and said, "First, you did the right thing by getting a certified docket. That's solid. Second, your employer is behaving like an employer. They're trying to reduce liability. But third, this is important. What your ex did is potentially criminal, and we're going to treat it like that." I swallowed. "They're saying it could be sealed." Priya nodded slowly. "Sealed protective orders exist, but a sealed case would still have internal record integrity. There are ways to confirm existence without disclosing content, and if HR keeps using sealed as a reason to hold you out, we can push them to specify what they're doing to verify it." She leaned forward. "Do you have the PDF file itself?" "No," I said. "Only the printout they showed me." "Then your next step is to demand preservation," she replied. "A written request to your employer to preserve the email, the attachment, and the headers. That is evidence of transmission. If they delete it or lose it, that harms you." Hearing her say it that way made my pulse jump. Evidence, headers, preservation. This was no longer a relationship issue. This was a records issue. Priya continued. "I can also send a letter to HR stating you dispute the validity of the order, you have certified documentation of a mismatch, and you request immediate reinstatement or a defined verification timeline. Additionally, we can send a cease and desist to your ex for defamation and harassment." I hesitated. Would that escalate things? "It might," she said honestly. "But silence is also an escalation when someone is attacking you. The key is to escalate through official channels. Paper, not emotion." That phrase stuck with me. Paper, not emotion. Priya asked me to forward everything I had. Then she said, "One more question. Did Elise ever have access to your work information? Your workplace address? HR emails?" I shook my head. "Not HR emails. But she knew where I worked." "And did she ever mention the legal system? Court filings? Friends-in-law?" I thought back. Elise had once bragged that her cousin worked in a paralegal office. She liked dropping that kind of thing into conversation. Little hints of connections. "I don't know," I admitted. "She's the type to imply she has resources." Priya nodded. "Okay, here's what I want you to do next. Do not contact her. Do not contact coworker. Keep logging everything. And if HR calls you, don't argue. Ask them to put everything in writing." On the way out, Priya stopped me with one more thing. "Marcus," she said, "I've seen these cases. The most dangerous part isn't the first lie. It's the second lie that comes after the first one fails." I froze. "What do you mean?" She held my gaze. "When someone commits to a narrative, especially one involving fear, they often double down. They'll claim you're retaliating, they'll claim you're stalking. They'll say your efforts to clear your name are proof of obsession. That's why your approach has to be clean enough to survive cross-examination." Cross-examination. The word followed me all the way to my car. That evening, Priya emailed me drafts of 2 letters, one to HR, one to Elise. The HR letter requested immediate preservation of all evidence related to the alleged order, including email headers, attachments, and internal notes. It demanded a defined verification process and timeline, and it included a copy of the certified docket. The letter to Elise was shorter, colder. It demanded she stop contacting me and third parties about me, and it warned that false statements and fabricated legal documents could result in civil and criminal consequences. I read both letters twice, then approved them. An hour later, as if on cue, my phone buzzed again with an unknown number. This time the message was different. "You think you can call the courthouse and embarrass me? I have screenshots of you. Keep pushing and I'll send them to your job." My blood ran cold. Screenshots of what? I hadn't spoken to her. I hadn't even been near her. But she didn't need real screenshots. She needed the threat. And in that moment I realized Elise wasn't just trying to get me fired. She was trying to make me afraid to defend myself. I saved the message, added it to my evidence folder, and typed a note with the timestamp. Then I sat very still, staring at my phone because a new thought hit me, sharp and undeniable. If Elise was sending threats from unknown numbers and messaging strangers on LinkedIn, she wasn't careful anymore. She was leaving fingerprints. And sooner or later, if I kept my head and kept collecting paper, those fingerprints were going to line up into something even HR couldn't ignore. The next morning, I woke up to 3 separate emails from people I barely knew. One was from a former coworker I'd connected with years ago, someone who didn't even work at my company anymore. "Hey Marcus, I hope you're okay. I'm hearing some wild stuff. If you need a reference, let me know." The second was from an aunt I rarely spoke to. "Your mother seems upset. Is everything all right? Elise said you're scaring her." The third was from HR. "Marcus, please confirm you are represented by counsel and provide their contact information. All further communication will be through legal." I stared at the HR email and felt my stomach sink again, not because it was hostile but because it confirmed how serious this had become. My job wasn't just on pause. My career was now being handled like a liability file. I forwarded it to Priya and replied with her information. Then I did the one thing that felt both smart and humiliating. I wrote a short message to my family group chat. "Just so you all know, there is misinformation circulating. I have legal counsel. I am safe. I am not under any real restraining order. Please do not engage with Elise if she contacts you." Within minutes, replies poured in, some supportive, some confused, some silent. My uncle wrote, "If you didn't do anything, why would she do this?" That question, asked innocently, still felt like a blade. Because it's the question everyone asks when they don't want to admit the truth. Sometimes people do this because they can. Around 10 a.m., Priya called me. "HR responded," she said. My heart kicked. "What did they say?" "They're acknowledging receipt of the certified docket," she replied. "They're also confirming they have the original email and attachment. They're not giving it to us yet. But this is important. They are willing to arrange a 3-way call with legal tomorrow." "Tomorrow again," I muttered. "I know," Priya said, not unkindly. "But here's the good part. They also said they contacted the court directly." I sat up and, "They haven't received a response," she said. "Courts don't move fast. But the fact they're contacting the court means they're no longer treating this like a he said, she said. They're treating it like a document authenticity problem." A document authenticity problem. That phrase felt like oxygen. Priya continued. "I also sent the cease and desist to Elise through certified mail and email. If she keeps contacting you or your family after receiving it, that strengthens our position." My phone buzzed while she was talking. Unknown number again. I didn't open it. I just watched the notification sit there like a threat. "I think she's using burner numbers," I said. "Save them," Priya replied. "Do not respond." After I hung up, I opened the new message. It was a photo, a picture of the front of my building, taken from across the street. My building, my apartment. Under it, one line, "I know where you sleep." My hands went numb. For a full 10 seconds, I couldn't move. My mind tried to rationalize. Maybe it's an old photo. Maybe she took it months ago. Maybe it's a bluff. Then my rational brain did something else. It reminded me that even if it was a bluff, I now had a documented threat. I screenshotted everything, backed it up, and called the officer I'd spoken to the day before. He wasn't available, but another officer took the report addendum and told me to email the screenshot to a general address. When I hit send, it felt like dropping a pebble into a huge dark lake and hoping it made a difference. That night, I didn't go anywhere. I kept my curtains closed. Every sound in the hallway made my shoulders tense. And that's when I realized what Elise had really stolen from me, even more than my job. She had stolen my sense of normal. The next day, Priya joined a conference call with my employer's legal counsel and Dana from HR. I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open, headphones on, hands folded like I was about to be questioned in court. The company lawyer, Martin, sounded like a man who lived inside policy manuals. Calm, careful, always speaking in conditional phrases. "Marcus," he said, "we appreciate your cooperation. We have reviewed the certified docket you provided. We acknowledge that the case number printed on the document does not match the parties listed on the docket you obtained." I held my breath. Dana added, "We are continuing verification steps to ensure there isn't a separate sealed case." Priya jumped in smoothly. Dana, with respect, your verification should be specific. What court did you contact? What method? What response timeline? Because an indefinite administrative leave based on an unverified document is damaging my client. Martin cleared his throat. We contacted the clerk's office by phone and submitted an internal inquiry. We are awaiting response. Priya didn't miss a beat. And while you await response, have you examined the document's authenticity markers? E-filing header, judge assignment, signature verification, anything that would exist even in a sealed case. There was a pause. I could almost hear Martin choosing words. We are not in a position, he said finally, to independently authenticate court documents. Priya replied, but you are in a position to preserve and share the evidence you received. We request the full email with headers and the original attachment be preserved and shared with law enforcement. My client has filed a police report. That got a reaction, Dana said. You filed a police report? Yes, I answered, voice steady. Because someone forged a document using your workplace as leverage. And because I've received threats since then. Silence again. Then Martin said, we will preserve all relevant communications. As for sharing, we will cooperate with any lawful request. Priya leaned slightly closer to her mic. You can also voluntarily provide it to Marcus. He is the subject. Martin didn't bite. We will consider it. Consider it. It was corporate language for we will do what benefits us. Then Dana asked me, Marcus, can you confirm whether you have had any contact with Elise since your separation? No, I said. None. I blocked her. I didn't contact her after the HR meeting. The only thing I did was obtain certified court records to verify the case number. And have you been to her residence or workplace? Dana continued. No. Priya cut in. This line of questioning is attempting to reverse the burden. You have a document that appears fraudulent. My client has produced certified records showing a mismatch. You should be asking how the document entered your system and what steps you're taking to correct the damage. Martin's voice stayed calm but cooler. We're conducting a comprehensive review, Priya replied. Then set a timeline. Martin hesitated. We can provide an update within 5 business days. 5 business days felt like 5 years, but it was the first concrete commitment I'd heard. Before the call ended, Priya said one more thing that made my pulse spike. Also, please be aware, false information has circulated internally, and Marcus has suffered reputational harm. We expect the company to correct any internal misunderstandings once the document is confirmed invalid. Dana replied softly, noted. After the call, I sat in silence with my headphones still on. My apartment felt too quiet. A minute later, Priya called me privately. They're stalling, I said immediately. They are, she agreed. But they also just admitted on a recorded call that the case number doesn't match. That matters. It still doesn't fix what people think, I muttered. I know, she said. That's why we need the smoking gun. The headers, the metadata, something that shows how obviously fake it is. Smoking gun. That became my obsession. Over the next 2 days, I kept working quietly. I didn't have access to my work systems, but I had access to my own brain and the public record system. I went back to the PDF printout I'd photographed and started examining the details I'd ignored at first. The judge's name was typed in a font that didn't match the rest of the form. The court address line was slightly wrong, missing a suite number that official documents always included. The filing date was on a Sunday. Courts don't file orders on Sundays. That single detail made me sit up straight. It wasn't just off. It was impossible. I called the clerk again and asked a different question. Do protection orders get issued on Sundays? The clerk sounded tired. No, not in our district. Even emergency orders. In rare emergencies, law enforcement can seek a judge, she said, but it would still be reflected in the internal record, and the standard issuance date would match court operations. So a standard order dated Sunday is suspicious. Yes. I asked if she could provide a general statement in writing about court issuance practices. She refused, understandably, but she did tell me something else. If your employer wants verification, have them submit the document to our records unit. We can confirm whether it originated here. That was the key. If HR submitted it, the court could say, officially, not ours. I forwarded that advice to Priya, and she fired it off to HR immediately. Meanwhile, Elise didn't stop. She couldn't, because her power came from keeping the fog thick. I received another LinkedIn message, this time from a profile with a real photo, a young woman who worked in my industry. Hi Marcus, sorry to bother you. Elise reached out to warn me about you. Is there anything I should know? My fingers hovered over the keyboard. This was the trap Priya warned me about. If I responded emotionally, if I wrote a long message explaining, Elise could screenshot it and frame it as harassment or manipulation. So I wrote one sentence. I can't discuss private matters, but the document circulated is disputed and under legal review. Thank you for reaching out. Then I saved the message. A day later, that same woman replied, "Okay, I hope you're okay." And for the first time, I felt something shift. Not resolution, but doubt. If one person was willing to ask me directly, maybe the lie wasn't as airtight as Elise thought. Maybe people weren't fully buying it. Then, on Friday afternoon, 4 days into my 5-business-day wait, Dana finally emailed, "Marcus, please join a call at 3 p.m. with HR and legal. We have received preliminary verification from the court." My chest tightened. Preliminary verification from the court could mean anything. It could mean we can't confirm because sealed. It could mean there is a separate order. It could mean this is fake. I joined the call early, hands sweating despite the cool air in my apartment. Dana and Martin were already there. Dana sounded different, less guarded, more clipped, like someone who'd been forced into a conclusion. "Marcus," she said, "we have spoken with the court records unit. They have no record of the order format you provided being issued under that case number. Additionally, the court confirmed the case number belongs to a civil dispute between other parties." I closed my eyes for a second. Finally, Martin added, "We are treating the document as non-authentic pending final written confirmation." Priya's voice stayed calm, but I could hear steel underneath. "What does that mean for Marcus's employment status?" Dana replied, "We will reinstate Marcus's access effective Monday. He will be paid for the leave period. We will also conduct an internal review into how this was handled." My throat tightened again, but this time with something close to relief. Then Priya asked the question I cared about most. "And what will you do to correct the reputational impact?" Marcus was escorted out with security. Rumors circulated. There was a pause. Dana said, "We will send a general communication to relevant staff that Marcus's leave was administrative and that he is returning to work. We will not discuss personal details." I wanted to scream. A general communication wasn't enough. It wasn't even close. But Priya's answer was measured. "We will follow up in writing with specific expectations," Martin said. "Understood." The call ended with polite goodbyes that tasted like ash. I should have felt victorious. I should have felt like I'd won. But when I sat back, all I could think was, Elise isn't done. Because getting reinstated wasn't the end of her goal. Her goal was to mark me. And even though HR was quietly walking it back, she had already done damage that couldn't be undone with a bland email. Then my phone buzzed again. One more unknown number. I opened it, bracing myself. This time the message was short, confident, almost cheerful. "Too late. Everyone already knows." I stared at those words until my vision narrowed, and in that moment I knew exactly what I needed next. Not just reinstatement, not just preliminary verification. I needed the one thing that could finish this cleanly. The court's written confirmation. The kind that sits in a file and doesn't care about Elise's tone of voice. And I had a feeling that once I got that confirmation, the trail behind the forged document, how it was made and who sent it, was going to be clearer than Elise ever expected. Monday morning I went back to work wearing the same navy button-down I'd worn 100 times before, but it felt like I was putting on someone else's life. The lobby smelled the same. The elevator made the same grinding sound between floors. The badge reader beeped when I tapped my card, and for a second I almost expected it to flash red and lock me out again. It didn't. The doors opened. I stepped into my department and felt the room change around me. People looked up too fast, then looked away. Conversations dipped. Someone's keyboard clacked louder than it needed to. A couple of coworkers gave me stiff smiles that didn't reach their eyes. Jonah stood up from his desk and walked over like he didn't care who saw. "You okay?" he asked quietly. "I'm here," I said. "So, better than last week." He nodded, then glanced around. People didn't know what to think. "I know," I replied. And I meant it. That was the part that still burned. Not just that Elise lied, people lie all the time, but that the lie had been given a uniform and a stamp and marched into my workplace like it belonged there. At 9:30, Dana from HR asked me to come upstairs. No security this time. No badge on the table. Just a small conference room with Dana, Martin from legal, and a new person I hadn't met, someone from compliance who took notes like they were building a case file. Dana slid a letter across the table. "This is the court's written confirmation," she said. It states the case number provided does not correspond to any protection order involving you or Elise, and the court has no record of issuing the document presented. I picked it up and read every line twice. It was exactly what I needed. Boring, official, undeniable. It didn't say forged in giant letters, but it might as well have. It confirmed the mismatch, the absence of record, the lack of origin. Paper, not emotion. My hands were steady, but I could feel my pulse in my throat. Martin cleared his throat. Marcus, on behalf of the company, we acknowledge we acted quickly for safety reasons. We also acknowledge the document appears to have been fraudulent. Appears, I repeated. Dana looked at Martin, then back at me. Yes, the court said they did not issue it, so it was not authentic. I nodded. Thank you for putting that in plain language. Dana's shoulders lowered slightly, as if she'd been holding tension for days. We will be paying you for the leave period, including any missed on-call rotation. Your system access has been restored, and we are reviewing our intake process for third-party legal documents. I waited, because the part I cared about most wasn't money or access. It was the stain. What about the internal rumors? I asked. I was escorted out. People saw it. People are still treating me like I'm radioactive. Martin answered in a practiced tone. We sent a communication stating you were placed on administrative leave pending verification and that the matter has been resolved. That email doesn't say the document was fake, I said. It doesn't say I did nothing wrong. Dana's lips pressed together. She looked genuinely uncomfortable. Priya had warned me they'd avoid specifics to protect themselves, but I wasn't going to let my name be resolved in corporate language while Elise walked away with the damage intact. Priya's voice came through my ear in memory, clean enough to survive cross-examination. I took a breath. I'm not asking you to share private details. I'm asking you to correct a false impression that impacts my safety and career. The court has confirmed the document was not issued. That means the premise for the escort was false. The compliance note-taker stopped typing for a moment. Dana glanced at Martin again, and this time she didn't wait for him to speak. We can send a second clarification, she said, to your immediate department leadership and relevant staff. We can state that the document received was not issued by the court and was not valid, and that you are returning to work in good standing. Martin's jaw tightened slightly, but he didn't argue. I nodded once. That's what I need. The meeting ended with Dana giving me a copy of the court letter for my records. When I stepped out, I felt lighter, still angry, still cautious, but no longer trapped in uncertainty. Now I had something that could outlive gossip. I walked back to my desk and sent Priya the letter immediately. Her response came fast. Good. Now we move to accountability. That afternoon, Priya filed a formal request with the company for the original email with headers and the attachment. This time, with the court's letter in hand, the company's tone changed. They didn't want to be the employer who ignored a forged court document. They provided the email chain to Priya under a limited release and simultaneously forwarded it to law enforcement as part of their cooperation. I received a copy of the attachment too, the PDF Elise had used. Seeing it on my own screen outside the HR office was infuriating. It looked official enough to scare non-lawyers, but once you knew what to look for, it was full of tells. Inconsistent fonts, a pasted seal, a judge name that didn't match assignments, and that Sunday date like a joke only the careless would make. The email headers were even more damning. It came from Elise's personal email, not spoofed, not masked, sent directly to HR's inbox with a subject line crafted to trigger panic. Urgent, court order, workplace notified. She hadn't even tried to be subtle. When the detective assigned to my report called me later that week, his voice was brisk, all business. Mr. Hale, he said, we reviewed the materials you provided and the email your employer preserved. There is sufficient cause to investigate this as a false document and potential harassment. My throat tightened. What happens now? We will contact the sender, he said. We may request an interview. Depending on findings, it can be forwarded to the district attorney. I thought I'd feel triumphant hearing that, but I didn't. I felt tired. Because even when you're right, you still lose time. You still lose peace. You still lose innocence about how easily systems can be manipulated. A few days later, Elise finally stopped using burner numbers and tried the one approach she thought would work on me, appearing reasonable. She emailed Priya, not me. The email was almost polite. I think there's been a misunderstanding. I was advised to notify his employer for safety. I didn't create the document. A friend helped me. I've been scared. Reading it, I felt my stomach turn. She didn't deny sending it. She just tried to outsource responsibility for creating it. She tried to turn her lie into advice. She tried to make her forgery a misunderstanding. Priya's reply was one paragraph and colder than winter. Do not contact my client or third parties regarding him. Your email admits to transmitting a non-authentic court document to his employer, resulting in employment disruption and reputational harm. All further communication should be through counsel. Any attempt to frame criminal conduct as a misunderstanding will be preserved. When I read Priya's response, I felt a quiet kind of satisfaction. Not the dramatic kind, not revenge, but the calm feeling of someone finally refusing to be dragged into chaos. The company sent the clarification email the next morning. It went to my department, my director, and several team leads. Following verification with the court, we have confirmed the document received was not issued by the court and was not valid. Marcus Hale is returning to work in good standing. Please direct any questions to HR. It wasn't a public apology. It wasn't poetic justice, but it was a correction in writing, on the record, sent from the same institution that had treated me like a threat, and that mattered. You could feel the shift after that. People stopped whispering as much. A couple of coworkers who had avoided me suddenly remembered they meant to reach out. One person even said awkwardly, "Man, I'm sorry. I didn't know what was true. I didn't punish them for it. I didn't lecture them. I just said, I get it." It looked bad. Because that was the part people don't like to admit. If they were in my coworker's position, most would do the same thing. They'd back away from the alleged danger to protect themselves. That's human. But I also learned something important about the people worth keeping close. Jonah was one of them. So was my director, Adrian, in a limited way. He pulled me aside a week after my return. "I should have called you," he said quietly. "I didn't know what to say. I didn't need you to say the right thing," I replied. "I needed you not to assume the worst." He nodded, eyes down. "Fair." And that was that. As for Elise, the consequences weren't instant, but they were real. A month later, Priya updated me. The district attorney's office had filed a charge related to a false instrument and harassment. Elise, through counsel, asked for a plea arrangement. Part of it included a no-contact order, this time real, this time issued by an actual court, this time recorded properly. The irony wasn't lost on me. She tried to weaponize a restraining order to punish me. And in the end, the only legitimate court order that came out of this was one that kept her away from me. There was also a civil side. My employer didn't want to be involved, but Priya filed a demand letter for damages tied to defamation and interference with employment. Elise's attorney pushed back. They tried to paint Elise as afraid and me as controlling, but the docket didn't care about feelings. The email headers didn't care about fear narratives. The Sunday date didn't care about Elise's acting. After some negotiation, Elise agreed to a settlement that included a written retraction sent to specific individuals she had contacted, including my mother, and a formal statement that she had transmitted an invalid document and that she had no legitimate court order against me. My mother cried when she received it, not because she needed the retraction to believe me, she eventually did, but because she hated that she'd been made into a tool against her own son. I sat with her at her kitchen table, the same place she'd bandaged my scraped knees when I was 8, and she said something that stuck with me. "I always thought the truth was enough," she whispered. "I didn't know people could do this." I answered honestly, "I didn't either." The story didn't end with fireworks. It ended with paperwork, emails, and quiet corrections. But that's the point. People like Elise count on you responding in a way that gives them more material. They count on you yelling, threatening, breaking down, posting, reacting. They count on you making your defense look like instability. What saved me wasn't being louder. What saved me was being precise. I didn't try to win with charisma. I won with a certified docket, a court letter, email headers, timestamps, and a calm record of events that held up when the emotions burned off. And here's the part I want you to hear, especially if you're the kind of person who avoids conflict the way I do. Avoiding conflict doesn't protect you from someone who wants to destroy you. Documentation does. If someone ever tries to use official paper to trap you, an order, a notice, a threat, don't panic and don't perform. Verify. Ask for certified records. Preserve evidence. Put everything in writing. Make the system do what it's supposed to do. Because lies can travel fast, but court dockets don't. Court dockets just sit there, patient and cold, waiting for someone to check them. And when I finally held that certified proof in my hands, Elise's entire story collapsed. Not because I convinced anyone with emotion, but because reality properly documented doesn't negotiate. The last message Elise ever sent me before the real no-contact order kicked in was short. "I hope you're happy." I didn't reply. I just saved it like the rest, filed it away, and went back to living a life she no longer had access to. Because the real victory wasn't getting my job back, it was getting my name back, and learning that sometimes the strongest thing you can do isn't revenge. It's refusing to let someone else rewrite your reality when you have the tools to prove the truth.